Unbeknownst to me, 32 male, my wife 30 female, is back on birth control. I had a vasectomy years ago. As the title says, I have had a vasectomy done when I was 25. We are both child free, so it only made sense to have a permanent solution rather than using condoms or other forms of contraception. My wife used to be on the pill, but always complained about how annoying it was taking it and so on. We did not have any issues for all these years and neither have mentioned birth control since. Fast forward to now, we recently moved into a new home, and I'm tasked with redoing a bathroom. After I installed the vanity, I begun putting our stuff in it. My wife has a small pouch where she keeps her travel kit for her work trips. It's a toothbrush, paste, small bottle of mouthwash, Macup and ibuprofen. I was having a terrible headache and our house has been upside down for a while now, so when I remembered that she keeps painkillers in that pouch, I opened it to get one. Inside, I found birth control pills. It would make no sense for her to keep the pills from 7 years ago, especially since she has used this pouch multiple times for her work trips. It's not like I found them in a long forgotten corner. Then, for the first time in our 10-year relationship, I doubted her. I sat on the couch and started to think of all the possible reasons she might be taking those behind my back. For one, she is on my health insurance, so I would see if she had a doctor's appointment for an issue unrelated to contraception. I know that BC pills are used for other purposes. She is healthy and would certainly share with me if something was wrong medically. Why would she hide it? Especially in the light of her complaints regarding the pill. I decided to put the pills back in there and act like I didn't see them that night. I checked back the next morning and sure enough, another pill was missing. So, she is actively taking them. I'm lost. Part of me doesn't want to know, and I wish I could just erase that from my memory. We are happy together, we have a wonderful life, and I cannot prepare for it all to come crumbling down. I'm not ready to learn that she is cheating, but I can't go on without knowing what's going on. How do I approach this without sounding accusatory? If she genuinely has a medical problem, and I cannot imagine she had, and would hide it from me, I don't want to make her feel attacked. Tell me there's a good reason why she would take the pills. TLDR, had a vasectomy years ago, found that wife is back on birth control without my knowledge. Edit. Wow guys, I was at work and came back to a lot of replies. I'm reading through them now, and the general consensus seems to be that she likely has a valid medical reason for taking them. She'll be home soon, and I will have a conversation. Edit 2. She is likely cheating. I'm still shocked / mad / upset, and can't write everything right now, but we discussed, and she had a very weird reaction to me bringing it up. First she accused me of going through her things. Then she said it doesn't matter anyway, because she has nothing to hide. She could not explain the reason behind her taking the pills. Why is this happening? My 36 male, wife 31 female, is pregnant with another man's baby after a break and wants to keep it. I don't. What should we do? We've been together for 14 years, married for 10. Before our relationship we hadn't had lots of previous relationships each, and in this last year we started to have loads of issues, and decided to go on a break in January, just to take the time to maybe appreciate each other for a bit and see what life's like on our own and maybe see other people. If we decided to, on our break, we both were okay with us both experimenting and being with other people, and I've had a fling and I knew she did too. So a few weeks back, with the current coronavirus pandemic, and before we had lockdown here, we decided to move back together and carry on our relationship. Now as soon as we moved back in together we talked about our experience with other people. I'd been with someone casually, definitely with protection, and she'd had a one-night stand with a guy. However, in her situation she was super drunk and was sick, so she thinks she threw it back up. And it's one of those, if you don't take it at the right time every day, you could get pregnant. So she has an STI test, clear, and a pregnancy test, positive. We are child free, or at least I thought we were, and always had an agreement that, if we ever had an accident we'd have a termination. The baby is definitely not mine, absolutely not possible. So she had a termination scheduled for last Thursday. She came to me on the day and said she just couldn't go through with it. She wants to keep the baby. Now I freak out. I've told her we've always been child free and definitely I don't want kids still. I don't want to raise another man's kid. She's apologized to me for being so stupid, but is saying she is 100% sure. I've been trying so hard to convince her she shouldn't keep it, but she's just not having it. She's said we can raise the kid as our own. I'm not having it. It would be had enough if she had a kid of mine, but at least I could accept that it'd be my kid if that happened. This kid will be another man's. Nothing to do with me. What the sweet duck do I do? I know the sensible answer is walk away and cut your losses, but it's not that easy. I love her, and we've been in each other's lives for so long. Plus we're in the middle of a quarantine and she's got nowhere to go. I'd feel horrible kicking a pregnant woman out to fend for herself at a time like this, but I don't want a kid, ever, not even if it was my own. Edit sorry about some of my later posts or comments being confrontational. I have been sitting in my garden drinking vodka all afternoon, so I'm pretty wasted, haha. TLDR, me and wife went on a break, and she got pregnant accidentally with another man's child and wants to keep it. I don't as we've always been child free. I, 36 male, set up 2 of my friends, 36 female and 36 male. I found out today he has been catfishing me as his partner on her phone to check up on our friendship. TLDR at the end, because this is a long one. I have a childhood friend, Emily, I've known since we were 5. We originally met because our respective fathers were both German and living in the UK having married British women. They became friends and we were basically raised as siblings. Nothing remotely romantic has ever happened between us. It's accurate to say I treat her like I do my other sisters. People struggle at times to believe nothing has happened between us, but is it so insane for someone with 3 sisters to treat a childhood friend as a 4th? We stopped being friends briefly when she got married way too young to her boss. He ended up being incredibly abusive, controlling her life at every level, and over the 3 years they were together he basically isolated her from all friends and family. We reconciled when she divorced him. Around this time I attended university and met my now wife early on. We were assigned to the same floor in halls. We've been together for 17 years now, and she's become really close to Emily over the years. Also at university I met a guy, George, on my course. We were part of the same friendship group, but didn't stay in touch until we coincidentally ended up working together a good 10 years after graduation. I ended up introducing him to Emily, and they started a relationship. A year or so later they moved in together. Emily was happy, he was happy. On the face of things he's seemingly been fine with me and Emily's friendship, and never said anything. Over the past few weeks I started getting texts from her, sometimes late at night, that were just off. I was suspicious when she used a common British shortening of my full name, rather than the traditional German version our respective fathers and she would always use, and when some overtly flirty, almost outright texting occurred I immediately shut it down 100% sure it wasn't her. I basically called him out and asked if this was in fact George using her phone and bluntly asked why he was trying to text with me as his girlfriend. He never responded, but after explaining the situation to my wife she went over to Emily's with my phone to see what was going on. I wasn't there for this, but she showed Emily our entire text history and what he had done. George came home, and they confronted him. He first outright denied it, and had the balls to accuse Emily of texting me and trying to hide said cheating from my wife by saying he did it. Emily just left with my wife to come stay with us after this because there wasn't any reasoning with him. The morning after he called and begged her to come home. He was crying and threw himself at her feet claiming he did it out of jealousy. He highlighted that she was in the habit of deleting our conversations which drove him mad, an apparent choice she makes for all her texts with everyone, not just me, and he was always jealous of our relationship. He found it hard to see me with her, and after he saw her saying stuff like how she loved me, again, siblings, not being able to read our texts drove him to basically go fishing to establish our relationship. The texting was an attempt to bluntly see if it was something we, or more specifically I, would engage in. At this point Emily asked for mine and my wife's opinion on this whole thing. I called bullcrap on this being a mistake. something he was driven to by jealousy. He violated her privacy by going through her phone, risked our friendship by masquerading as her, risked my marriage by trying to bait me into texting a friend, risked Emily and my wife's friendship by making it look like Emily was texting me. The entire thing was a clusterfuck. I didn't outright say she should leave him, but I highlighted how dishonest this whole thing was. She eventually went back home, and I didn't hear anything for a few days, but Emily eventually revealed to my wife that she had functionally forgiven him. My wife worked out from the conversation what had happened. He had basically flipped the script on me by playing into fears from her marriage. He described me as another controlling male trying to dictate who she had a relationship with. He encouraged her to make her own decision. Not bad advice in theory, but she had to ignore me because I didn't have her best interest at heart. I was controlling her like her ex. My wife quietly pointed out he was in fact being like her ex, not me. He was driving a wedge between her and family. At this point Emily just gave up. Said she couldn't win, couldn't decide between the man she loves and her brother, so duck it. Let's pretend it never happened. We haven't really spoken since. Apparently part of forgetting this ever happened is also giving in to his worries about our friendship. Every time I try and bring up what he did, I've either been ignored or told to stay out of it. Honestly, this pisses me off that he's gotten exactly what he wanted. He stopped us talking. I know I can't force her to break up with him, but it's seemingly a catch-22. I can't push her to make a decision about what he did whilst he's got her convinced I'm controlling her. I rarely see George at work and he's rightly kept the duck away from me. I was tempted to bring my sisters into this clusterfuck, tell them what happened. They love her like a sister too, and see if they can talk some sense into Emily, but that's somewhat manipulative too. So any advice here? Let crappy sleeping dogs lie? Try and get her to deal with what he did rather than sweeping it under the rug. TLDR. My childhood friend's partner texted me pretending to be her as a test to see if there was anything between us. He's got her convinced my objections to what he did is just me trying to control her, and as a fallout we are not talking. Update. I, 36 male, set up 2 of my friends, 36 female and 36 male. I found out today he has been catfishing me as his partner on her phone to check up on our friendship. I thought I'd update this post, seeing as there was part of a resolution and the advice was good. So, I followed the general advice of just leaving the entire situation alone. I agree any interference from me or my family would be manipulative and controlling, albeit well-meaning. So, I haven't really spoken to Emily since slightly before Christmas, but her mother contacted me a little after New Year to ask if I knew what was going on with her. Emily's cousin back in Germany had contacted her mother saying she had turned up on her doorstep having flown in from the UK on the 4th after apparently breaking up with George. According to her mother, Emily had come back to our hometown for the holidays. She brought George, and at some point they ran into her ex-husband at the pub. For context, we grew up in a tiny village in the arse end of nowhere. There's literally nothing to our village but a pub, a post office and small supermarket. Her ex still lives where we grew up, so this is all information relayed to me via Emily's mother, but apparently at some point George approached Emily's ex-husband and asked for some advice. George is familiar with the story of their relationship and know how controlling he was and why they divorced. Somewhat to her ex-husband's credit, he apparently refused to answer any questions and quietly approached Emily's mother to relay what he had asked. Now this is according to him, and George denies it, but he said George asked him how to handle me in terms of my friendship with Emily. I've no idea what Emily's ex-husband's motivation was here, but they've been divorced for a decade now, and he hasn't contacted her in this time. So I'm inclined to believe it wasn't further attempts at interfering with her life. Maybe it was actually manipulation. Maybe in the decade since they've divorced he's become a better man. Who knows? We're all inclined to believe that is what was asked, despite George denying it, because how else would her ex-husband know he had an issue with me recently? He isn't in contact with anyone who would know about the recent issues. Also, to be honest, the ex never had an issue with me. He saw me as a child, despite being the same age as his then wife, and constantly called me kiddo and asked how school was. It would be a very specific shot in the dark on his part to assume George had an issue with me without George saying so himself. So, her mother told Emily what George had tried to do and pointed out that her boyfriend is now trying to emulate her ex-husband's behavior and encouraged her to confront him over this and also what happened over the last month rather than ignoring it. Nobody was privy to the discussion they had, but he left sometime after it to return to their shared home and she stayed with her mother saying they had broken up. She stayed with her mother until the day after where she, without any warning, left for Germany. The cousin she's staying with assures us she's relatively fine. She's just overwhelmed and embarrassed she let this happen again. She couldn't handle being where she might run into either ex, so staying with her mother was off table and she just ran somewhere far but safe. I still haven't spoken to Emily. I've sent her a message with some condolences and reassurance she will always have a home here in the UK. I've decided to continue to give her space whilst making it clear I'm there for her. She hasn't responded, but I assume this is just out of awkwardness over what happened and how technically George was once my friend. He hasn't spoken to me either, and I haven't seen him at work at all. So yeah, not a happy ending per se. It shouldn't have taken her abusive ex getting involved for a resolution, but as people predicted, George was being abusive, and he would repeat that behavior. I suppose it was relatively painless that he showed his true colors so emphatically without much further abuse. This could have dragged on. Thanks for the advice. Me staying out of it didn't make this any easier for her, but it probably avoided making it worse. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, hit like, get subscribed, and give the OP any advice you have for him in the comment section, and support the original writers with upvotes. Links in the description box.